And so yeah, I started turning 2 a lot more in practice, getting 3, running 4, like starting to really feel like my goal of running 41 since I was 5, like all of ours, right? Coming out the gates at 41 is something that we all think of and dream of. And for the first time last summer, I felt like, hey, this is doable. This isn't impossible. This is something that with a little bit more work and it might happen.
All right, everyone, welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Dane Mechler. I'm particularly excited to share it today as Dane will be competing in the semifinals of the Water Ski Nation head-to-head competition. So I hope that you'll get to check that out. This second part, we get a little bit more recent in terms of Dane last season and maybe the last 2 seasons. And also a little bit more personal. I asked Dane some questions about his technique, some of his experiences here in Tallahassee, and also some of his ideas from his business experience of what he deems would help to promote the sport of water skiing. So very excited to share this with the water skiing community. The other thing that I want to announce, and I kind of prefaced it a few days ago, is that I've opened a second podcast, and this podcast is called Water Ski Bits. And the idea behind the Water Ski Bits is essentially to share more shorter, I guess, audio clips from all the interviews that I've been amassing over the last few months. So for now, I don't know when you will be listening to this, but for now, you can check it out if you go to thewaterskipodcast.com/bits. You'll see the first 5 bits up there, and then soon enough, I'm hoping by the end of this week, early next, you'll be able to find it on Spotify and Apple Podcast. It's currently on Stitcher and Google Podcasts, simply because they're a bit faster with approvals of new podcasts. But so you can find it there if you normally listen to podcasts on Google Podcast or Stitcher. It should be on Spotify and on Apple very shortly. I submitted this early this week. But in the meantime, if you want to re-listen some of those bits, you can go to thewaterskipodcast.com/bits. And the idea is basically sharing some of the advice that previous guests gave, rather than some cool stories. Just a bit more of like a 5 to 10 minutes audio clip that you can share on social media and promote some of the content there. So yeah, with that said, let's enjoy part 2 with Dane, and I'll catch you next week. Good?
Yep.
All right, we came back from a little break, So we covered your 2 world titles.
Yep.
There's something that I really want to cover on, which is your last year's Open World Championship experience. But before we go there, I know that a lot of people are curious about your skiing technique. I would say it stands off as a little bit different, right? And you kind of alluded to how, obviously your dad influenced that a lot, kind of keeping it simple, let the boat do the work. But do you have, maybe going to quarries and seeing other skiers, or, as you sort of progressed in your career, you must have noticed that people were doing things a little differently. How did that help shaping your technique?
Yeah, so I will just mention again, I do think my dad was a little bit ahead of the time in bringing us up. It was always very everything easy, very, use the boat, let the boat do the work, kind of stay balanced, stay over the ski. And when we started going to quarries, Corey had a huge influence on my skiing. Corey, as you know, but some may not, is one of, I think, the greatest slalom coaches out there.
Oh, I would agree,
hands down. And Corey will always talk, it was a little bit of a different perspective. It was a little bit more balance, a little bit more be efficient, a little bit more, kind of from a trick ski perspective,
Yeah, exactly,
staying over your ski, always being front foot, kind of getting the rhythm, progressive and all that. And I think he really had an impact, influenced the skiers that came through his ski school.
Oh, for sure.
And at the time, I got very lucky to be exposed to Daniel Advarco, Adam Sedemeyer, as I'd mentioned, and these guys. My first week, one of the first, not first weeks, but I spent a week when I was still skiing 55K down at Corey's, and Adam and Daniel were running Lake 3. I showed up on a good, and at the time, being 55K was my last year in Boys 2. I was running 35s. I was trying to learn how to run 38.
Yeah.
And those guys really took me in, and I think a lot of what my dad talked about, I started to hear a bit from them for the first time. Kind of that, rhythm, use the boat, let everything happen,
Right.
stand in and those guys, I think, shaped me a bit more than they know. And I also with Corey and but yeah, I think I've always taken being shorter, I knew that I had, I couldn't sacrifice anything on technique. I had to do any little thing, to be more efficient on the water. So yeah, it was something that I really focused on, staying over the ski, letting the boat swing me, letting the boat do the work, and just kind of grew from there.
And then, let me tease it out.
Okay.
I kind of want some specifics here because, for instance, you have a very peculiar gait.
Yeah.
Right. Your stance over the ski. You're very, very much on your front foot. Like if we could draw a string, it wouldn't be even in between your feet. It would be almost like it directly onto your front foot. Right.
Yep.
You hold the handle very close. Like some of the things that you don't see around. How did that gait shock came about?
So being left foot forward, I didn't have a ton of people to watch to kind of, right? Most people, I'd say in our sport, are predominantly right foot forward, which is their onside. So having the offside turn in for the gate, I sort of, I don't want to say I had to figure out on my own, but there wasn't a lot to look to. I remember I used to watch Parrish quite a bit,
Classic.
who does it better than anyone.
Classic.
And super tall, super over his front foot, lets the ski roll in, set before he loads the line. And sort of watching that combined with, Corey was always very much, I'd ski with him and all we talk about is the gate.
Right.
Right. It was very much gate, pull out, everything. And you see it with Regina. Regina's very focused on her gate, and I think that really came from Corey as well.
Yeah.
But I'd say a lot of it was just obviously trial and error, but trying to figure out what worked where I could get my ski underneath of me without the line being on me to be able to swing to one, let the boat swing me to one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's something that I started to kind of coach, and coaching has an interesting way for you to reflect on your own
I agree.
kind of style, and I think that really helped me a lot starting to coach at Corey's, kind of talk people through their gates. What are you feeling? What am I seeing? What do I feel? And just learning how to get the ski underneath of me without, moving the arms or without,
Right.
any moves that you don't want. So.
Right. So efficiency seems to be
Yeah.
one of the core, and it's funny to me that we do get efficient on the ski in different ways, right? To each his own in a sense, but very efficient. So for instance, you brought up Parrish.
Yep.
Obviously he's much taller than you, is much taller than most skiers, and I would defend he's one of the most efficient skiers out there, but he's super tall throughout the whole course, through the wakes, waiting for the ball, after the ball. Whereas, for instance, I would defend you're very tall into the wakes, but then you really use your legs to set up the ski into the apex.
Yeah, and I think that actually came about. I was really working on, for a long time, I worked on trying to take my hands through the edge change and in front of me to be able to set the position and then move away. And to do that, being short, I felt like I really needed to unweight the feet. So my focus for a while was really tall into the first wake, but then move the hands through the edge change in front of me. And I think that's kind of where that style came, where people are, hey, you're looking like you're, squatting a bit. And sometimes I certainly get in the bad habit of doing it into the first wake and need to be realigned. But for me, moving that ski through center line and getting it on the opposite edge, being short, I think I gain a lot of space by, sort of bringing the hands in front of me, the feet get unweighted, other edge, change edge, and then I'm set, and the work is sort of done and just need to hold.
And it seems to me like it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of skiers that use their legs to edge change or through the edge change, if we want to call it that. But to me, yours is very much more deliberate. Like the others, it seems to be, I would include myself too, like it's kind of like a consequence of the wakes.
Yep.
And so we sort of learned how to deal with the wakes by using our legs. Whereas yours seems kind of almost timed, right? You kind of have that moment. To me, the classic for you is like into 135. Like you sort of like do it, and then you're super tall into the turn.
Yep.
And then the crazy thing is that the second you grab the handle, there's not a part of your body that moves. Right? It's such a unique style, but I mean, clearly it's been super effective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think back on what really drove that, but a lot of my sets growing up, I mean, it wasn't like I had like, coach every single day or, very light. I was kind of back in Cincinnati. I go down to Corey's. I was kind of skiing all over, trying to figure out on my own a little bit, watching videos and all that. And so I think it just sort of kind of developed. But to be able to get out to one ball at 39 or 41 when I started getting there, I think I sort of started to develop that. And I started to feel the effects of that and doing that into 135 where I could stay small to where when I got off the handle, I could really open up and get out there.
Yeah.
Because the look that I have, which 100% different than someone like Parrish, right?
Right.
Coming into one at 41 is super narrow.
Right.
Right. And I think staying small and over the ski and balance allows me to get away from it, to be able to, let the ski go out and come back and have the space.
Yeah.
So I think it sort of just developed over time. It wasn't something where I was like, okay, I'm going to do something totally different and try and, use my legs to edge change. No, I think it was more like that's what started to work, and then it kind of just started to become habit. And yeah, no, that's cool. And the other one thing about your technique that I kind of want to touch on, because I think you do it very well, and it's something that a lot of people talk about, but I want to hear your perspective: handle control, right? Yeah.
So off the second wake into the apex, out of the turn, like, do you focus on that or?
100%. As soon as I get disconnected, I have no chance. Just being short, I really try and feel the, something that I talk a lot about and what my, even my dad early on was feeling the boat, keeping that handle control, keeping the line tight. And Corey was also a big on that is using your hands to through the edge change to kind of, really as little movement as possible.
Yep.
With the handle.
Yep.
Right, you're setting it and moving away and coming back to it, and then you're set again, and I think that's something I focused on that a ton, especially coming back to the handle. I would say is really setting it, opening up, but then for a while there, I would try and take it back right away, and I get stuck. And I think something that helped me really open up running 39 consistent was setting the handle, getting away from it, but then really trying to relax and come back to it. Yeah. And and I think the advantage there is you just keep the line tight so the boat's, obviously not spiking and,
I think that's something that people don't talk about as much, or maybe not even with the right terminology, because we see a lot of like skiers throwing the handle, as I would say, right? So they edge change and they sort of like throw the handle towards the boat, they create slack, they lose connection. But I think another huge part is that calmness, and a lot of people talk about it in terms of like getting back to the handle, but you said it, I think, in a better way. You said like control and be patient, like the handle will get where it needs to be, but you don't rush into getting it towards you.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, ideally the ski comes back at the same, kind of the same speed or whatever as it goes out, right? So if you get away from it, set it, let the ski go out, it comes back, and that moment of being patient and having that trust that, the ski's going to come back and set, and allows you to kind of get in that progressive pull earlier than per se if you have to reset and right. And I think a lot of that came from my dad used to talk a lot about turn, then go.
Right.
And it was that turn, set, go.
Right.
And it was that turn, not pause, but pause with, with the balance.
Yeah. Yeah, make sure you are balanced as you turn
Moving
before you
through,
try to accelerate. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And I mean, it seems to me that has been serving you well as a 2-4, because let's face it, a lot of left foot forward skiers are extremely onside turn heavy and that sort of survival 2-4.
Yeah.
But one of the things that strikes me with you, or say with CP, is that you're way more symmetric of a skier being left foot forward than the rest,
Yeah, I think 2-4 is certainly something I work on every day. It's, obviously trying to turn 2 at 41 was a huge task for me.
Yep.
Took a long time, and still, frankly, is a, everything has to go well for it to happen. And I'm trying to kind of narrow in what exactly it is to get through that. But something that, I think helps me through 2-4 is really just staying over the ski as long as I can, really just being balanced. And I think that certainly helps me in tougher conditions as well.
Well, we're actually, I think it's time to talk about it. You're sitting, if you look to the right, to that 3-ball, which is the first time you got to 3-ball at 41.
First time ever. 2016, I think it was a September tournament.
Yep.
I had, at the time, that 2016 year was a great year for me. I'd run a lot of 39s and lot of twos. Lot of twos. And still after. But that 3-ball right there was a huge milestone for me. I remember the first day I ran 2.5, couldn't hold on to it. And the second day, first set, turn 2, line came tight, and I was like, oh my God, And,
I'm going.
I'm going. So, yeah, I got 3 right here at Lake 38, which, I mean, is not a given, but here with the perfect conditions and perfect boat and the environment. And I think that event we had, I don't know, I think like Jason McClintock was here. I think maybe T-Gas and Will Asher.
Yeah,
maybe.
JT.
It had a little bit more to it than just...
It's like half of a pro event, honestly.
Absolutely. And seeing those guys turn it, and, that goes a long way, too. It's like, all right, those guys just ran,
And was that your first fall? No, it wasn't your first fall here. You moved here the year after.
The year after. So that was my fall of my senior year of Lafayette.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Talk about a little bit of the year we spent together, right?
Yeah, I've been kind of waiting to talk about that. It was a tremendous year for me. I remember I graduated Lafayette, and I was kind of unsure of exactly what to do. Was it time to enter the workforce? Was it time to maybe go back and get more education? Maybe it was time to pursue skiing a little bit more, which I didn't think I was quite ready to do. And like I said earlier, academics were always sort of the driving force for me. It was sort of the priority. And hopefully I would be able to ski, but academics was something I really pushed. And, through, talking to you and having spent time over here and seeing your experience at Florida State, I kind of put that on my radar as hey, they have this tremendous master's in finance program, and ended up going for it. So, yeah, I got to move to Lake 38 and live with you.
First of all, accepted.
Got accepted, got a graduate assistantship, which helped cover cost. And, so things really just fell into place there for the, leaving Lafayette. I just have, of course, like through your journey, you have these moments where you're like, how did that all fall into place? You have so many people that you could thank and reach out to, and it, and certainly yourself and Keith, through that process, it was like a dream. It was unbelievable. It was such a great opportunity. So, yeah, I was able to move in, lived with you. We were able to ski together every day, pushing each other, just 39 after 39 after 30.
Yeah.
Just so we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about. almost like what you felt probably when you moved to UL, which was what I felt when I moved to UL. Wow, now I get to ski every day with people at my level or better, right? And that's going to help in any way, whether it is watching them skiing with them, but silently against them, because you don't want to say it,
right.
But, when we would show up to the lake, you skied 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of want to get to 3,
Yeah, no, I remember getting out of class pretty tired, okay, let's go ski, and not really feeling it, and you go out and you just smoke 39. I'm like, well, I'm not doing back-to-backs,
Right, exactly.
So, but I think also just coming here, having Keith driving every day,
yep,
willing to pull us, one of my favorite drivers, being here at Lake 38 where the conditions are perfect, I was really able to focus on some things that, I may not have been able to focus on before, or think about some things through talking with Keith and yourself. And now that year we did a lot of skiing. We had a great time, and
a lot of grilling too.
A lot of grilling, a lot of cooking. I remember fall of that year, we were meant to go to
Bennett's. Yeah, how cool is that story? Yeah, I remember.
And we were both crushing it. We were skiing well.
Yeah,
things were doing we were both really skiing well. We went to a ski watch tournament together, kind of last minute. We're like, oh yeah, let's go over and ski that tournament. We both skied well, and we're finally into our final few weeks of training, and one last tournament of the year was at Bennett's, and unfortunately, was it something?
Yeah, there was a hurricane watch, and
yeah. Anyway, so they ended up canceling the tournament, and Matteo and I had been in full on eat healthy, ski every day, trying to do everything we could to get an extra buoy at 41.
Because we were getting to 3 consistently. I remember I think both of us got into 41 at Ski Watch.
Yep.
And I remember there were a few weeks before Bennett's, so we're like, dude, we're gonna go go far at Bennett's, and we're skiing really good.
Yeah, so we really got into it, and as soon as that tournament unfortunately got canceled, it was full on off season.
Right away,
straight to the store, and obviously I like to cook, and you as well, and we made some just unbelievable meals, but that month was
it was a lot of ragu, a lot of comatose post meal, followed by Catan games. It was just the season was over.
The season was over. It was time to take a step back and enjoy the off season for a bit. Which
Yeah. Now, speaking of season, you had a pretty stellar season last year, man. I mean, you were let's start with Worlds,
Yeah.
Because obviously, let's put it into perspective. You did a year here. We had a tremendous time.
Yep.
Moved to Charlotte to work.
Yep.
Right. So now yet another challenge of finding place to ski, time to ski.
Yeah. So as I graduated here, I was had a tremendous opportunity in Charlotte, North Carolina, with Grant Thornton. And I ended up taking that job with kind of the thought of, I don't know how skiing is going to go from here. It's my first real full-on job. Hours are high, and expectations are high, and I just feel so lucky to be able to be in Charlotte, to have yet again walked into a situation where I don't know how much better it could get for what I need to do. And so, I ski, for those who know the facility, I ski at Little Mountain Lakes, which is the Neil's place, which is Neely Ross's grandparents.
Yep.
It's one of the most beautiful sites I've ever seen. It's unreal. It is really absolutely perfect. It's the same family who built, Lakes Hancock. And anyway, it's a perfect place to train. And I sort of got connected with Jeff Gilbert, who's a former and great tournament driver, used to drive tons of pro events, and sort of to the same tune as Keith, is very in tune with ski setup and dialing things in. Everything has to be perfect. I mean, if a buoy's an inch tall, we're lowering it. And so I yet again ended up skiing with him, also Graham Pfizer, another great skier. And so I had these great ski partners to once again, after work, be able to push myself.
Yeah.
And I think through that process, I learned a lot about myself. Just first of all, having to, be at work all day. It really taught me to use every opportunity. Every set there was a purpose to it. You know, and it wasn't in school. Obviously, you know, you have a lot going on, but there's time where, you know, skiing can just feel like another part of the day.
Right.
And every time I got to get out to the lake, at least for the first months, because I didn't know how many times I'd get out there. Right. It was like, I'm here, I'm taking every advantage, I'm going to make the most of this. So I think that really helped, you know, mentally, but also helped my skiing a lot.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that it kind of comes out of necessity almost, right? Like you're rushing to the lake. I mean, I think this is an experience a lot of listeners can relate to. You know, you're getting out of work, daylight is limited, you know, like you have to get out there and you get it to squeeze a set in. You have to use it, right? Particularly if you have goals of competing and still being competitive, which I'm sure, you know, the second, knowing you, I'm sure that once you figured out that you had a situation where you could train, your thought might have been, oh yeah, I get to ski. But embedded in the thought must have been, I get to compete.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sort of felt like as soon as I felt good enough or comfortable enough with my skills to really compete and have a chance at, you know, making podium and making finals, you know, I had always prioritized academics and I really wanted a great job after, which was the priority. But once like you said, once I figured out that I can maybe balance, it was like, all right, let's really try and do this. Yeah. You know, and I think that really, you know, the first year I started working. I wasn't skiing as many pro events, kind of get used to everything. And some are a little bit harder to get to, just depending on work. But the ones I can get to, I just, you know, put everything into that and just see it so differently than I used to.
Well, I think the epitome of that was last season, right? Where you really had to and managed to balance things very well. And I think that became clear in the stretch between end of July, end of September. What happened then?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, I was planning, you know, hey, what tournaments am I going to be able to do this year?
Right.
You know, with work vacation and also trying to figure out, you know, what tournaments can I get to? I sort of, with it being a Worlds year, devoted most of my, you know, my availability to that. I was saying, you know, it was always been my dream to, you know, ski in the finals at Worlds and, you know, go and compete in the Worlds and have a chance to really maybe, you know, push into the top 10, top 5 and really compete against these guys. And so I decided to not ski. I skied Swiss Pro, but anyway, I decided to not ski any of the summer events in Europe. Yep. I decided to kind of save vacation and say, okay, I'm putting it all into Worlds. It's going to be 2 weeks. After that, hopefully, you know, I'll be able to ski some more after that and kind of limited it to Worlds in California and Malibu Open. Yeah. And so I kind of had that plan the whole year, kind of worked myself to that and really focused on just doing whatever I had to do to turn 2-ball. Because let's face it, right now it's 2 at 41, and I mean, there's finals you don't even come close to making running 2. And 3, being a lefty, for me, if I can survive 2, I've had this thought for a long time is if you can get through 2, you can hook 3, get to 4. And 4 is a score that is worth going to any event. Yeah. Right? So I really just, you know, skiing with Jeff, skiing with Graham, it was more like I'm going to do whatever I can to turn 2. It's 1.5 or 3 or 4. It's not. Okay. No more 2s.
Okay, so that's okay, because you had gone to 3 a couple of times here in 2016. Yep. Maybe you got 3 again after that.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I don't know. I ran 3 maybe once or twice a season there in between. You know, it was certainly a few and far between. I had, you know, 62s or, you know, it sort of got stuck in my head, and, you know, I was running 39 almost every round, but only getting 2.
And what helped? So, you know, you went through that process. You say, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes. It's either 1.5 or 3 or 4. Anything that helped you? Because, I mean, obviously this year you went through the hump. Yeah, you know, you started to get outside of 2 more and more often. Yeah.
First of all, I think I got my equipment a little bit more dialed in. Okay. I felt like I was on a really great ski on the XTR, a good XTR, where it really suited it really helped me get through too, I think.
Okay.
I've turned two well on that ski more than any other ski.
Got it.
And but also it was more sitting at work, watching, listening to webcasts and saying, man, I really want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It was that I think I'm good enough to be there. And if I start turning two, it's worth it to go and worth it to go and compete. And I think it was just the mindset of I'm going to learn how to turn two, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And I started turning two a lot more in practice, getting three, running four, like starting to really feel like my goal of running 41 since I was 5, like all of ours.
Yeah.
Right? Coming out the gates at 41 is something that we all think of and dream of.
Oh, yeah.
And for the first time last summer, I felt like, hey, this is doable.
Yeah,
this isn't impossible. This is something that with a little bit more work and it might happen.
Right.
And I think like Jeff and Graham and them, it started more shift toward, hey, well, what are you doing going into 3 now? And it was kind of just getting over that mental hump of freaking out at 2 or whatever it may be. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you ran it in practice?
I have not.
I
have not. It turns out 4 is just as hard as 2 to turn.
Interesting.
So, but I've certainly had starts and passes where I'm early at 4 and just can't even believe it.
Yeah, right.
Like we all do. At every pass I think I ever ran, it was like major 4-ball freak out, boom.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like,
the massive blinkers right into your offside turns.
Yeah. So I think ran my first 4 last year in June at the home site at Little Mountain, which I was doing in practice and knew I could do and kind of put it all into that. And at the time I wasn't skiing pro events, so I was really able to focus on scores rather than trying to just make the cut or right. I was really able to dial it in and focus on myself.
Yeah. Well, and then June comes, you by then I think you already made up your mind, like I'm not going to Europe, I'm just going to prepare for Worlds.
Yep.
Worlds 2019, Malaysia.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Let's tease it out.
So, first of all, very far away.
It's far, Malaysia.
It was a damn far flight.
I don't care where you're coming from. Malaysia is far.
Very far. I took 2 weeks of vacation, and luckily my team at work was very supportive of me. They really pushed me to go, and which really helped the whole process. And I just remember having a different feeling toward it, though. It was more of a getting there. I hadn't skied a pro event in a while, and it was more of just like I'm back in it. Like I'm back in the pro water ski scene.
I get to be here.
I was just like so thankful to be like there, and amidst all the craziness, because let's be honest, it was extremely challenging.
Yeah.
I remember my first pass in practice, I had Corey in the boat, great support with the whole team there. Janina was there and all that, and Corey was in the boat, and trying to be positive, right? And it was damn hard. And I remember after 35, he was like, Dane, I've never seen you run 35. Just basically like it's gonna be hard. We're just gonna have to get through this. Yeah. You just make the cut, and anything can happen. And it kind of plays to your strength growing up and skiing in rough conditions, and you can do this. And I think that combined with just the feeling of being thankful to be there, and just like I'm back with the people that I like to be around. I'm back to I'm back having a chance to compete and really put all my work into out there.
Yeah.
So and so practice set goes, and prelims come, and somehow managed to go out and run 39. I just sort of tried to eliminate basically all the noise, just really just focus on myself. I had this opportunity, and I was going to go make the most of it. And I think that my style being a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, staying over the ski, kind of the things that I've worked on my whole life, certainly help in difficult conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the biggest push was a few skiers before me, Thibaut, who I had, skied against for a long time, crushed 39, smoked it in the prelims. And at the time, we were all kind of like, all right, what's the cut? You know, is it gonna be 1? Is it gonna be 2? And I remember
at 39.
At 39.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I remember the sense of urgency of there's still 18 skiers left at least. Thibaut just smoked 39.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm gonna go run 39. Like it's just what has to get done. And so that set, coming off of a Worlds in Paris where I didn't make the final, unfortunately, was just so like it was unbelievable. So
of course, and I think because like let's face it, I know you're a bit of a water ski geek like myself. Like the cut at Worlds in the last few years has never been more than 4.
Right.
It's super rough in Malaysia.
Yeah.
You might have that thought of like, if you get to 4, you're good.
Yeah.
But if someone like Thibaut's max a 39 in your face,
yeah, I mean,
and you have 18 left,
I mean, that just immediately elevates the field.
Right.
And I knew that going off the dock. It's
right.
Everyone behind me, that's what and when they're chasing that, it's a whole different story.
Exactly.
Right. So being early, I wasn't I wasn't lucky enough to know, being in Series 2, I wasn't lucky enough to know the cut.
Yeah.
And so I was just out there for every buoy I could, and running 39s consistently for, almost 3 to 4 years, being stuck at 2, but running 39 almost every round, I think really played to my advantage there is, you just need to do what you do every day.
Yeah.
And
you did. And you did it to a point that put you top seeding to the final.
Yeah. I remember getting done and, I was like, people were talking, and I was like, well, I'm obviously was stoked, right, to run 39. And, I figured I'd be in with it, but I was kind of talking, I wonder where I'll be. And I had people tell me when there was still like 12, they were like, man, you're going to be top seed. I'm like, no, no way. Like, and so ended up, a little bit of wind came up. And then once you know the cut, you're just trying to survive. Right. So the last 10 off the dock, I don't know what the cut was. I think it was 3 or 3.5, so somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Anyway. And
they
were all
the usual,
right? So most of them were out there to get in like anybody else would be. So yeah, I ended up top seed at the Worlds after, 2 weeks before I was in my desk watching web, it was right. It was just such it was an unreal feeling. I just, for the first time, maybe I really felt like, I belong here. Like I can do this. Like, let's keep this going, and just being thankful and really nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So.
Well, okay. So obviously the happiness, maybe there was a day or two in between prelims and finals, and comes the day finals, and you're a top seed.
Yeah.
You're last of the dock. Completely different situation than, from prelims where you didn't know what the cut was, to finals where you're the sole one with the knowledge of what it takes to win.
Yeah, I actually thought that would be a little bit more terrifying.
Right.
When I first started process, hey, you're going to be top seed, I was like, all right, let's do this. And I really think luckily to have Janina there, she was like, well, look, you don't have to do anything different than you do.
Right.
Go ski, go have fun, right? And, I didn't feel that sense of like, oh, man, I'm going to have to, whatever Will does and T-Gas does, and these guys that have won multiple Worlds, I'm going to have to go top it. No, it was more like, I just need to go stick to myself and run 39 and anyway, have the best shot that I can.
Right.
And at that time, it was, I'm getting on the podium. That was the goal. It was like, all right, let's get on the podium. Let's use this opportunity. And I just remember standing on the dock. It was an unreal feeling. The last one off the dock, there's no one else there. The world's, everyone was watching. And I still had the feeling of like, I'm just so thankful to be here,
Wow.
And I think that really helped me. I won't say I wasn't nervous because obviously,
yeah, of course,
a bit of nerves, but I think it was like, I think I can do this, I think I can run 39 again. I think I can, have a shot here.
Walk me through the set, like from the start, 32 off, how were you feeling,
Yeah, so overall, I felt pretty dialed in, about as dialed as I could be in Malaysia. I really tried to, my goal the whole time through 38 was stay wide, stay two hands, stay away from the buoys.
Yeah.
Because any little bump it's over, right?
Right.
And so I really tried to just stay wide, keep two hands long, stay balanced. Was able to get through 38, and at the end of the end, I'm all right. Like I did this the first round, I can do it.
Yep.
And managed to get through it. And at that point, it was I got to the end of the lake, and after running 39, and it was decision time. What do I do?
Yeah.
And 2 is a score that I've run tons of times. And that decision was going to have to come as I was edge changing to 2.
Okay.
It was a decision of, I'm going to give myself the best one I can to be able to get to 3. In worst case, I can circle 2.
Right.
And so I really had it in my head of, this may be your opportunity to potentially win.
Yeah.
Because it's a score that I can do. And
just to give a bit of context, there were 3 guys with 2 before.
3 guys with 2.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Freddie, Joel, and Will.
Yep. So they all had 2, and I kind of saw it as an opportunity to have a shot to win, and I might. Who knows if I ever get that chance again at the Worlds. Comes twice, once every 2 years.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I remember. I still have a hard time watching this 41 because it's just, I was very excited with the way I skied, but I somehow hit one ball and just totally went down. I got scored 0, so a lot of people thought I missed my gate. But no, I went through the gates, and the problem was I hit one with like my binding. Like if you go back and look at the pictures and stuff. So anyway. Didn't end up making it to 2. Didn't end up making it on the podium. Ended up 4th,
yep.
Which 2 weeks before had you told me, hey, if you go to the Worlds, and you stick to your program, you're going to end up 4th. I mean,
yeah, who
right?
knows? Yeah, right.
In Malaysia, when anything can happen. So I was not, sad or right. It was a happy feeling after, but it was definitely another one of those. If I ever get that opportunity, I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to think about that the next time before I get up.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Yeah, and what have you... Because, in a situation like that, I don't know that regrets can come into play. Like, what have you learned from that experience?
Really to be...
in the positive and in the negative.
Yeah, so in the negative... I think that morning I'm more focused on, and as I should have, this maybe is a positive, is do what you can to get through 39. Worry about it after 39. There's nothing, you can win at 39.
Yeah.
You got to get through it, right? And the other thing was you're going to know the score, right? So whatever it may be, that morning I said, I'm going to go and run 2. I know I can do it. If 2 is 7th place, I'm going to go run 2. So I had in my head... I was going to go and run 39, get to 2. And then I think the negative was just, I certainly didn't, it was kind of like, all right, do I really go for it? Do I not? Do I get 2? I didn't have that decision made up going off the dock. And I think that that's something that I certainly would next time.
Yeah.
It was, it's like someone like Will Asher can go and say, all right, I'm going to circle 3 and go to the dock, For me, in Malaysia with the rollers, I didn't want to be tentative. I didn't want to be, end up narrow or whatever it may be. So I really tried to go for it, and unfortunately hit 1. But had I slid through 1, who knows?
Right, exactly.
And that's what gives me hope for the next time. And so.
Well, you were able to convert those experiences pretty quickly because you hadn't skied a pro event that year. Swiss Pro.
Yep.
But and then you showed up to California.
Yep.
And then to Malibu Open, and you got what, 4th and 3rd?
Actually 6th in
6th
California.
and 3rd.
6th and 3rd. Turn 2 both times, which was the goal at 41.
In both tournaments.
In both tournaments.
Okay.
I ran over 3-ball in California in the final, but I got the turn and pulled a 3, which was the goal, and then ended up getting 4 first round at Malibu Open. But I'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, I think it was less about my experience at Worlds and more about the prep that I did for Worlds. You know, really just focusing on turning 2 and all that, but also the mental side of, hey, you belong here. You know, you can do that. You can have a job, but also ski and compete.
Yeah.
Like, this is something you can do. And it was the first test of that, really, was at the Worlds.
And you said that after the Worlds, it was, as you said, the first time that you felt that you belonged in that field.
Absolutely. I think it really was. And that was something that I've been wanting for a long time. Is I think I'm good enough, right? But can I go and do it?
Right.
You know, and I think that validation helped me mentally in California, because I mean, California, I left work Friday night, flew there, first round prelim, kind of survived, you know,
right.
2 at 41. And that was the first time that I was kind of like, all right, I can not prep tremendously well and still succeed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it was the prep going into Worlds, and then plus the mental aspect of Worlds, and you can have a job and still compete. It's possible.
Yeah.
So.
And there's someone, not to diverge too much, but like there's someone in your area that made a career out of that, and in my opinion, one of the best skiers of all time.
No, that's right. I'll say. So we're sitting here at Lake 38, and Regina just pulled in.
Yeah.
And Regina is the model for that. I mean, she's owning her own pharmacy, and you know, able to ski and compete, and you know, break world records and win every tournament pretty much that she goes to. And so yeah, it certainly is something that I look to when I took my job. Is it's possible.
Yeah,
you can do that. And I think it's a good message for, you know, maybe you're in college or whoever it is that wants to pursue a career, but also is right there competing and skiing. And I think it's possible. You know, I think there's some good to having structure from a job and having a routine. And I think it's certainly helped me a little bit.
No, of course, Regina, I mean, prime example of that. I was more thinking about Jeff Rogers, who you told me you had a couple of conversations with in the last year or so.
Yeah. So Jeff is fairly close. He skis at all the tournaments at Little Mountain.
Yep.
And was actually my boat judge when I first ran 4, and then the boat judge again the first round of Malibu. And I remember we had a little bit of a talk before, or basically, you know, it was like, hey, you only run 4 with me in the boat, or you know, something like that. And no, but Jeff is you know, someone I looked up to growing up. I mean, when he won the Worlds, I was, I think, 8.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, U.S. skier. I remember watching him at nationals, and you know, so being able to ski with him a little bit, or just having his presence around. I mean, the guy is still just smashing 135, like you know.
Yeah, better than anyone else in the world. Yeah.
Still, and so yeah, he certainly someone I look to.
Yeah, and someone that you told me that kind of helped you being convinced of the fact that you can pursue your career and still be part of the Pro Tour and still push yourself.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He, you know, he made a career at, you know, running 39 every time, getting, you know, smashing 135, and anyway.
Owning a business.
Owning a business.
In the meantime, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he told me, I remember we were judging together last fall, and I was like, man, you know, how did you do it, going to all these tournaments? And, you know, because I was looking at the Europe Tour this year.
Yeah, of
saying,
course.
all right, like, I'd like to ski in those. And it was funny. I couldn't believe his response. He said, well, I would just fly in for the weekend. I said, what?
Right.
You know? And so, anyway, it's a little bit crazy to think about, but I think it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I think, you know, combining that and the fact that you now have this feeling that you belong in it, because everyone knew already, but you know, until you believe in it, it just doesn't really happen. But yeah, wow. And then so California got your 6, and then in Malibu you got your first pro podium, right?
Malibu was first pro podium. Yeah, and that
podium.
That was a huge tournament for me. I mean, that was a big turning point, I think. It was the last tournament of the year. At the time, I started looking at Masters points and was really looking like, hey, if you can maybe get on the podium, like, you might have a chance to slide in.
Yeah.
And, you know, Charleston is a lake that's only 3 hours away from my house in Charlotte, my place. And so I had gone there for their fall tournament the year before and their spring tournament.
Yeah.
And the play ski is unbelievable, but I've also been able to kind of have the sets there where I can just relax and ski. And so I was in a good environment and knew I've been running, you know, turning 2 and getting down line at 41. And, Yeah, first round I was actually like, it's so funny, that morning I was working because it was a Friday. I was in my Airbnb working,
Right.
you know, and then I took the second half of that day off, and I remember just like going out to the lake and, you know, going from working, and then I'm like, you know, let's go. It's time to ski. Let's, you know, it's just like any other night.
I mean, this is like the proper, like the epitome of like combining work and ski. You're at a tournament, you work in the morning a little bit, and you go ski the tournament, right?
Yeah, no, luckily I'm able to do that, work a little bit from home, and you know, that certainly helps a lot. But yeah, I just remember telling me, this is just like any other night. It's just work day, you know, do a little bit of work, and make the cut. And I think that 39, that first round, it was a bit gusty here and there, and I just completely stuffed two ball, like horrible two.
Right.
It just, like, my ski kind of stopped there, and, you know, blinkers, like, you know, just freaking out, right? And managed to get through it, and I think once I got through it, I realized, you know, I was in at the time, and kind of relaxed enough to be able to say, hey, let's see what we can do here for the next round, because it's going to take more than two.
Yeah.
And ran 4 the first round. Next round.
Yeah, let me give you some context here why you had that thought, because Malibu was the whole field to 16 to 4.
Right.
So I'm sure that in your mind you're like, okay, I'm through this one.
Exactly.
But I need to put up a score.
I think it's the hardest cut.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, to go to 4.
Yeah.
Was so I knew it would be more than 2, so it didn't matter, 1.5, whatever it was, it wasn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
And so the next day, sure enough, I had a good enough, I think I was second seed. So you know, anyway, so the cut was, I had to run 3.
Yeah.
And Corey Vaughn was on the edge, someone I ski with a lot, and you know, I think he had 2.5.
Yeah.
And I just knew, like, hey, you got to turn 2 today. There's no other option. And that was a big turning point for me, where it was like turning 2 when I really had to do it, you know. And because the other times when I had turned 2, it was more of like I said in the first round, I got through the cut. It was, hey, let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
And running 3, I that feeling was unreal. Just knowing I'd be able to ski in the finals of Malibu Open.
Yeah, that's big.
I mean, it was a big moment for me.
Big moment. And third place, which I mean, I would consider, you can discuss and have your people have their own opinion, but to me Malibu Open is like the 3rd biggest pro tournament.
Yeah, and well, on top of this, you think about the podium and who I was skiing against, it was unreal.
So it was you, Will,
so
Nate.
Will won, smashing 41.
Yep.
Nate second, and me third. And I mean, that podium to me, like, I couldn't think of, you know, right now. I mean, Will was on fire last year, you know, when he ran that 41. It was unreal to watch, you know. And so, yeah, getting my first pro podium, but at a big event, and also having, you know, multiple world champions, you know, Nate's won twice. Will, right? It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's big.
Wow. Yeah, it was a cool moment. So, and a great way to finish the year.
For sure. For sure. Look, I know it's a bit of a strange subject to talk about given the current world situation, but I would like to hear your thoughts about next year.
So next year, let's keep this as if, you know, unfortunately with everything going on with Corona, and let's just assume that all the tournaments are going to take place. So as far as next year, I'm really, first of all, looking to ski more events. With so many options out there, we're so lucky to have all of these tournaments where you can really, for me, pick and choose. Hey, all right, what makes sense? What can I get away with, you know, with work? What can I do to continue to balance work and excel there while still giving myself a chance to maybe slide in masters and ski enough tournaments to, you know, to compete. So yeah, this year I'll just talk about a little bit about the tournaments I'm really looking forward to. First of all, I was really looking forward to Swiss Pro. I think it's one of the greatest events that we have. I think it's good to kick off the year, you know, at least the U.S. year after Moomba.
But that got also moved to October.
Got moved to October. LA Night Jam is incredible to see back. Yeah. The last time they had LA Night Jam, I think I was 15 or I don't know, maybe 16 or so. But anyway, I was down there and watching. And so I'm extremely excited to go back for that. And, luckily they have men's slalom, and, it seems like it's going to be a great event. As you know, the Bennetts don't do anything halfway. It's going to be full on, such a great event, and one of my favorite places to ski.
Yeah.
So anyway, really looking forward to that. Europe, it's going to depend on work. I'm hoping to do a couple. I unfortunately won't be able to do all of them. And then, I'm looking forward to finish the year like last year with, California, Malibu Open.
Yep.
I hope to increase it by a couple. Unfortunately, I probably won't be able to do as many as, some of the other guys, but I'm looking to get back at it and ski quite a bit.
Yeah, and I guess all of us are looking forward to it. Like you had a killer season. I mean, you're obviously one of the names in the conversation,
Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, I've always had the feeling like I could.
Yep.
I could do it. And with pursuing academics and job, and, it was a little bit of a, in the back burner a bit. And to now be, have that feeling of like I belong and feel like I can go to any event and compete. It's something that I'm really excited about and looking forward to it. So.
Yeah. Look, before we take off, I have a question that I think I haven't had that perspective yet on the podcast, and I'd be curious to hear yours. You're obviously, like many skiers, you love this sport.
Yeah.
Like it's part of how you grew up with your family. Yes, you're super serious about your slalom ski, but we've done like 3 ski sets together, chasing buoys. Trying to see who falls. Like you love the sport.
Yeah.
And I've said in the podcast several times that I think there is a bit of a resurgence. It's nothing crazy, but like every year in the last 2 or 3 years, we see more tournaments, more people on the water, more people sign up to their federations, more skis being sold, boats. And from a financial standpoint, what do you think is something that ought to change, or maybe something that is working well for the sport? Like what do you think from the business side what would have to happen maybe for the sport to continue this progression or make it even higher?
So obviously, to me, as we know, it comes down to selling boats, selling skis, getting people on the water, right?
Yeah.
The more numbers, the better. I think something that we can do a little bit better job is transitioning the collegiate ski scene into having accessibility, to the sport, because we all know they love it. They come out and they want to continue to do it. And I think it's going to come down to, or I think something that would really help is certainly people who are willing to give all their time and effort and all that, like we love with Keith and, all these, yourself with your tournament and all that helps a lot. But to me, the next step is really having accessibility for people who want to stay in the sport. Because
tell me a bit more. What do you mean? Like more ski sites, cheaper sets? What are you thinking?
So I'm more thinking, what can we do to get people on skis? Like, what can we do to look at? I'll take myself for an example. Is I ended up in Charlotte, full-time skier. Had I not maybe been at the level I am, I maybe didn't even know that Little Mountain existed. So I think we need to do a better job of transitioning the collegiate skiers, helping them through that hey, you have this option, this option, this option. Maybe you can go ski a set, with these people in your area. Maybe they have hand-me-down skis. Maybe they have, ability for you to ski on their boat or whatever it may be. So I think from a selling more skis, selling more boats, but that doesn't just happen overnight. It's you got to pique people's interest, give them the ability to do the sport, and then down the road, like you see that come back.
And I think Jay spoke at length about it, like in his interview with me, in terms of like how the collegiate ski scene, and Marcus touched on it, or the collegiate ski scene could be a great springboard for continuing to increase numbers in the sport, right?
Absolutely.
Like you become a professional after college, maybe 5-10 years down the road you can buy a boat, you get your kids in it, like, and you continue that tradition. And the numbers of collegiate are pretty high.
Very high. And I think, doing a better job as, alumni and stuff, if you're fortunate enough to have a good situation and maybe you graduate from Clemson or wherever it may be, just reaching back and helping out that transition, because it's a hard one. Coming out of college and still being able to have a place to go, not only, but having, a boat and having a place to even do it and give yourself a chance is something that, unfortunately I see a lot of people fall out because it's just, not as accessible as we would like. So I think that gap is really something we need to close.
Yeah, and I think accessible, as you said, more of in a holistic way, financially, site availability, site knowledge, okay, maybe, what happened here? And I not heard from Tigas that there was a thing called Lake 38. I would have moved to Tallahassee and not knowing.
Exactly.
Again, I'm a competitive skier and I would have known.
Exactly.
But say someone like Yo-Yo. Like Yo-Yo was a collegiate skier, and had it not been for Danielle connecting us, he wouldn't have known about Lake 38, right? Yeah. And now he's here reaping buoys and try to become a better skier.
Yeah, I think I'll also add, with stuff like what you're doing with the podcast and getting involved and putting content, as you speak about, we need more content.
Yeah.
I think having a established pro tour helps not only for us, but for the kids looking up to us.
Yeah.
So I just think, when I was younger, looking up to Parrish and Jeff Rogers and Jamie Bouchain and, having that out there and having that content out there really sparked my interest, and I think that's something we need to keep having to the kids in the sport.
Well, sorry, obviously people might have heard that we had a pause for 2 or 3 seconds. We just, I think, watched Nate running a 41.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
pretty
Regina,
solid 41, no?
Regina watching.
Yeah,
maybe?
Regina watching, a little heavy at 3, but he made it through it.
A little heavy 3, but
but then again, someone like him or someone like Freddie, Will, they should be on ESPN in the conversation, extreme feats,
Right. No, I agree. I think we've done a little bit too much to exclude ourselves, to make everything a little too perfect, and I think that's something we need to all get better about is content, get it out there, bridge that gap for skiers who want to be involved but maybe can't.
Yeah.
Or maybe don't have quite all the tools yet to.
Well, Dane, this was a true pleasure.
I enjoyed it, Matteo. Thank you so much. I'm honored, that you wanted to talk, and I'm excited.
Any shout-outs you want to give while we wait for...
I just want to say a big shout-out, my parents, obviously. As all of us, getting in this sport, you need the support from your parents and family. And also Janina Bonneman, who, really does so much more behind the scenes for my skiing than anyone knows. So.
Thank you, G. Yeah, let's watch this 43. What do you say?
Yeah, why not? Oh, slack off 1.
Oh, little zigzag at 2 and 2 at 43.
43.
Off the dock.
Keith is stoked right now.
Is he stoked? Oh, Keith? Yeah. Keith at the wheel.
Keith at the wheel.
Regina watching. Keith is surrounded by world champions and world record holders right now.
It's so cool.
Isn't it cool?
But that's what this place is. It's world class.
It's world class, and I know you will agree with this. The vibe is really chill here.
It's one of the best vibes. I think when all the skiers who come for the Pro-Am really get to experience it. I think that's the biggest test to it. Is what are you asking like Sasha or Robert or hey, what do you guys think? Yeah. Man, that place is everyone says it, so it's cool.
Of course.
So anyway,
well, Dane, this was a true pleasure for me as well. I'm glad we got to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep skiing that hard. We'll be watching.
Thanks, Matteo. I appreciate it.
Boom, dude.
Yeah.
What do you think, man?
I don't know.
I went great.
Yeah.
It went great.
No, I really enjoyed talking about it.
This is a two-parter for sure.
Yeah?
It's a good 2 parts. I don't know, man.
You think it's worthy for that?
I think it is. But, it's not even worthy. It's not the interviewer. It's like how it breaks off.
Right.
The first part we did a lot of story build up very linearly.
Right.
And then this hour we really stayed on nowadays last 2 years,
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I felt like I was rambling a bit, but
But that's part of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Keith is whistling in the eagle. Oh my gosh. All right, man.
Cool.
Yeah.